Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dan on Sports. Well, story breaking in Sportico, and they were the first to report that a letter of intent has been signed for the sale of the Tampa Bay Rays. This is a big story. We all know what has happened with the Tampa Bay Rays situation, and this is Sportico that's reporting it. By the way, I love when a certain website breaks a story and it beats out the mainstream media, and now they're doing somersaults trying to make it look as if they had the exclusive. Then they have to mention it's Sportico. Sportico was the one which broke the story. So get that straight. And it could be interesting to see what happens. The story claims multiple sources have acknowledged that the Tampa Bay Rays ownership, led by Stu Sternberg, are in talks to sell the team to a group headed by Jacksonville developer Patrick Zalupski. So right away, the rumors are starting that, they're going to move to Jacksonville. We don't even know if they're going to be sold. What we do know, obviously, is there is now an effort by Stu Sternberg to sell the team, at least according to this story. And as I mentioned, Zalupski is a developer from Jacksonville, Florida. That obviously means he's got mucho bucks. We're talking about, according to the Sportico story, a team valued at $1.7 billion. $1.7 billion. That's a lot of money for a team that Sternberg paid $200 million for. So he might figure this is the time to sell, particularly considering the situation. We'll get to that in just a moment. Now, again, Sportico is reporting that Zalupski reportedly has signed an LOI with Sternberg. Now, that means something, and sometimes it means nothing. Just because you sign a letter of intent doesn't mean that the T's have been crossed and the I's dotted. In fact, it's anything but that. However, there are people out there saying that it has happened. In fact, the Tampa Bay Times is now reporting, because they got scooped on this. And like I said, there's nothing that bothers the mainstream media more than getting scooped on a story in your own backyard. And the Tampa Bay Times has been following this story closely about the Rays. I would imagine right now, if the Tampa Bay Times still has a newsroom, because most of these papers have their reporters operate out of their homes now because they can't afford to operate a newsroom. But I would imagine if the Tampa Bay Times has a newsroom, that heads are rolling right now because they got scooped on this story, which is a big story. And the Times has been following the story about the Rays and the possible sale. Is there a sale? Is there not a sale? Is there going to be a new stadium? Is there not going to be a new stadium? And they got scooped by Sportico. They got scooped, and now the Tampa Bay Times is trying to add another dimension to the story because they got beat out on the main story. And that's another media trick, by the way. When you get scooped, particularly by a website, then you try to find another angle to the story to make it appear like it's yours. You highlight that part of the story, and then on the last line, you mention, well, the story was first reported by Sportico. I'm telling you up front, it was first reported by Sportico. They broke the story. Now, the Tampa Bay Times is saying that there are other investors involved, and those investors are from the Tampa Bay area. So my guess is if you were going to move a team to Jacksonville, you would not be bringing on Tampa Bay investors. But that's what the Tampa Bay Times is reporting. Now, this is why the Rays are such an attractive franchise, even though they've got stadium issues. And we know the issue with the Trop, that the roof was blown off because of Hurricane Milton, that the city of St. Petersburg is obligated to repair that stadium because the Rays have a lease to stay in there through, the 2029 season? 2028. They've got a lease through 2028 to stay at the Trop, and St. Petersburg is obligated to repair that ballpark, and they've got to pony up something like $56 million to get it done, and they've apparently approved something like $37 million of the $56 million. So they're obligated to fix the Trop, and the goal is to have the Rays back in the Trop next season. We all know what they're doing. They're playing at George M. Steinbrenner Field now. And the Rays lost to the Orioles on Tuesday night 7-1, but they are 19-7 in their last 26 games and are breathing down the necks of the first place New York Yankees, who have been shut out 3 games in a row and haven't scored a run in 29 consecutive innings. But here's why the Rays are so attractive. Since 2008, the Rays have won the 3rd most games of any team in baseball. The low payroll Rays. This is what drives the other teams crazy. Only the Dodgers and the Yankees, the 2 money teams, or 2 of the money teams, you have to include the Mets in that, but only the Dodgers and the Yankees since 2008 have won more games than the Rays. And this is what drives ownership crazy. How do the Rays do it when they've got stadium issues, where they supposedly have money issues, but they get it done all the time? So the Rays are attractive in many ways because of how they do business. And now the issue is, can they get a new ballpark? Obviously, the commissioner wants the team to get a new ballpark, but they are not going to build a ballpark overnight. The commissioner has repeatedly stated he wants the team to stay in the Tampa area. Well, maybe this ownership group, which includes, according to the Tampa Bay Times, Tampa area investors, maybe that keeps the team in the Tampa area. Tampa's attractive in many ways, including its television market size, one of the top TV markets in the country. Baseball doesn't want to abandon that. For what, Orlando? You're dreaming. For Jacksonville? They're not going to move to Jacksonville. That pie has already been cut up. They've got an NFL team in Jacksonville. The corporate base isn't as big in Jacksonville as it is in Tampa St. Pete. So, this is an interesting story. Sportico broke it. And again, according to Sportico, the ownership of the Tampa Bay Rays, led by Stu Sternberg, has signed a letter of intent to sell the team to this group headed by a Jacksonville developer. And remember, we've read so much behind the scenes about how the commissioner is putting a lot of pressure on Sternberg to sell, and that some of the other owners want Sternberg to sell. Now, do they want him to sell because they figure that's going to upset the way the Tampa Bay front office operates? Because the baseball people in the Tampa Bay front office have blown the doors off of these other big league clubs on how they can field winning teams with this low payroll. You think that's going to upset the apple cart? I don't know. I think the bigger issue is they want to get a new ballpark in Tampa so that they can expand. Major League Baseball wants to add 2 more teams. Why? Because they make billions more if they add 2 more teams. The current ownership, that's why. But that's the story. Sportico is reporting that a letter of intent has been signed and that, we could be a step closer to seeing the Tampa Bay Rays sold. Developing story. We'll continue to follow it. As always, thanks for following Dan on Sports. See you later.